There are very wealthy people with a lot of experience in this area who the government is investing for those folks to really drive what is the visual vision of America.
Hmm.
And I think it's going to be used. I think the propaganda is getting more sophisticated and it's going to be used, over and over again in ways that I really think we have to pay attention to.
Hey there, fellow nerds. Welcome to another episode of The Present Illness, the podcast where two physicians try to make sense of a world that is increasingly febrile and definitely underdiagnosed. I'm Arga Von Salas, a surgeon scientist in your friendly neighborhood doom scroller in residence.
And I'm Alyssa Burkhardt, an anesthesiologist and bioethicist who tracks news and health law like they're EKGs, full of spikes and surprises. The Present Illness is where we dig into public health, politics, culture, and ethics with a scalpel in one hand and a meme in the other. And as a note to our listeners, we often talk about tough topics that can be intense, activating, and so if you need to take a break, we understand.
A big thank you to everyone who's listening, wherever you found us, and some extra love to our subscribers and those who follow us on any of the various platforms, with a special warm welcome to anyone who just stumbled in from. We're giving you a choice this week, either the 4-year anniversary of the terrible Dobbs decision or the catastrophe that is the reflecting pool at the Lincoln Memorial.
What a week for America, in the last gasp of her 249th year.
Yeah, never looked better.
Well, the Dobbs decision is obviously trash, and we desperately need to get abortion rights back for everyone. And screw you, Supreme Court, you suck.
And they continue sucking in as many ways as possible.
They've been hoarding all these decisions, right?
Yeah, well, it's always like this. It's Supreme Court season, right? Like SCOTUS season. So
But
they
no,
have
no, no. But it's like usually they get released over the course of June. It's not usually like it's freaking June 20. We're recording on June 25th.
Mm-hmm.
They're hoarding.
Yeah. Well, the latest one I saw was they said that Haitians and what was the other nationality they ruled on are not protected. Well, that basically the court is not going to interfere with decisions made about that temporary protected status. If you recall, the Trump administration withdrew temporary protected status from a large number. I don't have the number in front of me of Haitians, and this was fought all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, "Yeah, actually, that's not our business. What they do with temporary protected status." So that's extremely disturbing, along with many other extremely disturbing things that they have done and will continue to do.
The Supreme Court has to decide which cases to hear. So I sort of feel like that sort of makes it your business,
Yeah. And they said Assyrians are the other nationality that was part of that decision. But yeah, they basically said they're not going to interfere with the federal government deciding to revoke temporary protected status for these individuals.
Well, America, we're really we're really messing up. We're really messing up here. Okay.
In as many ways as possible. Wait, the reflecting pool.
Well, yeah, we have to talk about the reflecting pool. And I'm going to say this in part because talking more about temporary protected status and how horrible it is and talking more about how women are being harmed, dying, etc. because of lack of abortion access. That's too much for me today. It's too much for me today. Okay,
Yeah.
so I need to talk about the science of algae. Let's do that. That's the level that I can tolerate today.
And I think you're not alone. I think there are a lot of people who are upset and frustrated by all the things that have been happening in this country in the last year and a half, who are like, hooray, a story that doesn't involve people dying. Let's talk about that. So the reflecting pool, right? If people have seen photos or been to DC, it's in between the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial. I've been there many times. It's a beautiful place. And our president had decided that he wanted to repaint the bottom of the reflecting pool so that it would be, this color is called American flag blue. And he needed to do it I know. It's all a game. Anyway, he
It's
needed
like he thought it was gonna be like a Happy Birthday America, like Manny Petty.
basically, but on our dime, like we were paying
Of
for.
course. Yeah.
So initially, he said it was going to take like a week and $1 to $2 million, and
Listen, anybody who has ever painted a pool knows that that is irrational. Like, that's the anyway. As a man who seems to own a lot of pools, you'd think he'd know that.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what he's doing with his other pools, but this was clearly a vanity project, and he made this argument that, or his team did, that this was an emergency because it had to be done in time for the 250th anniversary. So they had to do these. This is what they said. They had to do these no bid contracts. One of whom was to one of Trump's neighbors in Florida, who also donated to his campaign, mind you. So they end up.
And for people who don't know though, like a no bid contract is like when you really need to do something like urgently, there's some like specific reason why you cannot go through the normal contracts process where like there's this whole
Yeah, like
thing of
let's say
like
there's a health issue, right? Let's say you've got like Legionella in the vents coming out at a place, right? Like, and you need to do something urgently to fix that so people aren't getting sick. Sure, that makes sense.
and you
Repainting
might
the
be willing to pay more money to take whoever will take it right now.
right, whoever will help solve the problem. But instead, we're talking about the bottom of a reflecting pool that was fine. Okay, was it perfect? I'm not going to say that, but it was fine. And he felt very strongly that it needed to be American flag blue. So this is problematic for a couple reasons. One of which is that this is a darker color, and the darker color will retain more heat from the sun, which raises the temperature of the reflecting pool, which, to your point, makes it more hospitable for algae. Isn't that nice? Okay, so that's one thing. Another thing is that they did this relatively quickly. They drove, for reasons unclear to me, they drove the motorcade over the newly finished bottom. I genuinely, yeah, to supposedly inspect it, I guess is what they said. But like that means they had laid down, like it's not just paint, there's some sort of sealing. And he says it's like some kind of almost rubber. I don't actually know what the material is, but whatever material they've laid down needs time to cure. Like it has to set, right? Anybody who's painted anything, refinished anything, you know this. But then they like drove over it with this motorcade, which seems just like a ridiculous PR stunt. And then they filled the pool, and I believe they used water. I will fact check this in the show notes, but I believe they used water from Potomac. Who knows why? Um, and I've heard rumors that they removed the filtration that had been put in by the Obama administration because it was Obama, so it had to be wrong. And then so sure enough, pretty soon after they had filled this pool, algae began to grow everywhere, and it became green. So one person I saw called it the Strait of Warm Ooze, like a play on hormones. The Strait of
Did you
Warm
see the
Ooze.
guy? Did you see the guy with the T-shirt that said Team Algae?
Oh yeah. Well, and I also saw the pink frog. There was a protester in a pink, one of those poofy animal suits. It was a pink frog suit, and they had a sign that said Team Algae, and then across their chest it said Amphifa, Amphifa. And I love that. Thank you. Shout out to whoever that was. Anyway, so the water turns green. The president is very upset that it's green. So he starts looking for culprits, right? It couldn't possibly be because he picked a terrible color. And also, by the way, this is a thing that I've learned is that algae do tend to grow when you change out the water in a system like this. And they didn't irrigate all the different pipes, I guess, that are affiliated. So like there could have been algae in the pipes. Anyway, so algae starts to grow. Because he cannot accept responsibility for ever having done anything wrong, like perhaps selecting people and paying people who don't know what they're doing to fix this pool. By the way, costing us between $15 and $16 million of taxpayer money.
Well,
Anyway,
and this
so
is the thing is like it had And like you said, it had an update during the Obama administration, like to maintain it, right? Like to like fix parts that just needed to be fixed and like the filtration system and all this stuff. I mean, I feel like if you were going to use a no contract, like a no competitive contract system, it's too bad they didn't pick the person who had done it before and not messed it up. But it turns out
Yeah.
if you just pick like your buddy who you wanna give money to,
Yeah.
turns out they did a terrible job, and you're
They did a
welcome,
terrible
and
job.
now it can cost you more money.
Well, it can cost us more
Us.
money.
Yeah.
And they, I believe, in the Trump one term, they also made some repairs in
Mm.
2019. Um, anyway, so we have these things happening. So somebody orders people to start pouring hydrogen peroxide into the pool to kill algae.
Peroxide?
Yes, hydrogen peroxide into the pool. And so you see them, they're like around the edges of the reflecting pool pouring like from like a container you could get at Home Depot. It's not like they got a truck or anything. They just like one by one pouring these like, I don't know, liter, gallon, whatever containers. And so some people took photos from the air like they happened to be on a flight and they're like the edges of the pool became more blue, but like the middle remained green. And then after that, the bottom started peeling. So there's like sheets that are floating up, sheets of this American flag blue floating up. It's not a very deep pool, the reflecting pool.
Yeah.
So they're floating up. And last Friday, like a week ago, there is a US Olympian who lives in the area, was on a long bike ride. He decides to take a detour and just like see what's happening at the reflecting pool. And he leans over and there's like this sheet that's floating up and he reaches his hand down just to touch the sheet because he's like curious, what is this? What's happening? He gets arrested. He gets
What?
arrested and held for 5 hours.
What?
Yeah, yeah, because he was vandalizing the reflecting pool. Um, so
I think that the president vandalized the reflecting pool.
correct. That is exactly what happened. But they've now arrested 6 people for like touching the water of the reflecting pool. And the president has insisted, even as recently as yesterday, that vandals took, he said, either a knife or a box cutter to the bottom of the reflecting pool and put a either 250-yard or 300-yard or 350-yard slit. He said all 3 of those numbers. Slit into the bottom of the pool, and that's what has caused these sheets to float up. Not the improper installation, not the fact that the motorcade drove over it, not the hydrogen peroxide that's corrosive, but that in an area that has 24/7 surveillance, vandals, those radical leftists, got in the pool and cut a slit with what knife? What kind of knife would you use to cut a slit? Anyway, that is what our president is insisting has happened. And then 2 days ago, they put a fence around the reflecting pool. So, I mean, presumably to keep the vandals out. And then now they're saying they're going to have to drain it again after the 4th of July and they're going to have to do some repairs on our dime, of course. But I want to say to your point, I know we have to move on, but I want to say to your point about whose fault this is. So Donald Trump had posted on the 21st, he said, work will begin immediately on fixing the seriously vandalized reflecting pool. I just inspected it and could only say to myself and those gathered around me, wow, who would do such a thing? Sick,
Great question.
deranged people.
I mean, it's really like a perfect visual analogy for his presidency, right? Like,
Well,
let's
this is
take
what a lot
something
of
that was
people are saying. It's like a
basically
metaphor
functioning.
for everything else, like that we can't necessarily see, or maybe a lot of people don't necessarily see exactly what's happened at NIH, exactly what's happened at CDC, what's happened at the Consumer Protection Bureau. Um,
It's been
all the
reflecting pooled.
exactly. They all have had people who are incompetent put in charge, and they've made changes that have led to the destruction of the thing they're supposed to be in charge of. But we just don't always see it as clearly as what we're seeing with the reflecting pool. Um, I do want to say, though, it has brought out a lot of humor. One person said Donald Trump will go down in history as the only US president to be outwitted by a single celled organism, which, yeah, I mean, touche. And another one, hold on, there were so many good ones. So,
You know, I mean, imagine like 30 years from now needing to write like a US history book, like a modern US history book, and being like, wow, we're not going to be able to fit all of this in one text. We're going to need multiple volumes.
oh yeah, there's so much to work with here. One person said, Selena Meyer, the spirit of your administration lives on. That's of course a Veep reference because where else would you find so much incompetence? He does also, I should point out, continue to blame Barack Obama for all of this. Um, I also saw someone posted um, there's a photo of the Strait of Hormuz, and it says scientific rendering of the Strait of Hormuz if the US takes control, and is green. The whole thing is green. And then somebody replies, that's where Al Jazeera is located, like play on Al Jazeera. Anyway, um,
The
thank you
the bl-
all for the comedy. It was clearly much needed because we're so overwhelmed with all the terrible things that are causing even more damage than the damage that's been done to this reflecting pool. Um, but yeah,
it's
that's
also
what's happening.
well, and it's also been fascinating that like this whole story about the reflecting pool has been unfolding, and then like the Obama Presidential Library opened up and like they had a beautiful ceremony and there was all this like I mean, I almost didn't recognize it decorum. And like I'm not like a big I mean, obviously I say like the F word a lot. Like I'm not
Right.
a big I don't like lean into decorum as a general thing, but I'm into it for the government. Like I sort of want the government to have like serious people in it who have serious interests and um, make smart choices based on the best available evidence. Um, so yeah, it was nice to see those speeches and be like, you know, that was a bright spot.
So true. I mean, because we had also the day that that library opened, and we had these speeches from Michelle Obama and Barack Obama that were excellent. We also had the rally or the parade for the Knicks celebrating their NBA
Mm.
championship, and so there was a really excellent speech that Zoran Mamdani gave. I mean, excellent from the perspective of a sports fan and a Knicks fan. Like it was very, very well done and very inspiring, and people were commenting that, we should really never see both Obama and Mamdani giving speeches on the same day because it really puts into focus how bereft our current government is of eloquence, of complexity, of thought, of decency. Um, anyway, so
I mean, I feel like this is like a great opportunity for, Republicans. Like if you want to get ahead, I'm just saying, like, we're open to hearing people who are going to speak with, dignity and care about people, and you could really change the whole party. Try it. I'm
yeah,
open to that. I'm open
yeah. You know what? That's a great challenge to any Republicans out there. Try to bring decency to the Republican Party. They're
to
whatever I
America.
to America.
Bring it to America. Anyway,
Even better. Even better.
all
Um,
right.
anyway,
Well,
yes.
I appreciate you bringing all the jokes about the algae.
Yeah, anytime. I'm always happy to see anything funny out there.
Oh, I have a mea culpa to tell you about. I'm
Mm,
switching gears. So as many of you listeners know, we have this podcast uploaded to like all the platforms,
mhm.
and like a lot of people listen on Apple. A fair number of people listen on Spotify where it gets aggregated. I did not realize that people were leaving comments, very lovely comments on
Oh,
our episodes on Spotify, and that's my bad. Spotify is not my typical platform that I use. So listen, folks, I will be paying much better attention now that I understand that. So I apologize. So all of you who just recently got like little hearts from us and little responses, like I'm gonna be so much better. Thank you for your beautiful comments on our episodes. We love that you're listening, and I will start pulling some of them to share.
Aw, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I'm sorry that
Yeah.
I mean, I don't check at all, so I also bear the blame, but thank you for
The
noticing that.
modern it's like the Instagram, the TikTok, the
Mhm.
Apple, the Spotify, we're all learning. So anyway,
Yeah.
thanks folks for listening. For all of you who are over on Spotify, I will pay much better attention to you and return the love.
Aw. Well, should we get into our first topic for today?
Let's do it.
Topic
I hear you're going to tell
1.5, I
me,
guess.
yeah. Well, you were just talking a little bit about Zoran Mamdani.
Yes, yes. Okay, so what I thought we could talk about today is this week was New York's primaries for their congressional races. So there were three candidates running for Congress who Zoran had endorsed. And these are all Democratic socialists. So for folks who don't know, like that's Zoran's affiliation is the Democratic Socialists, and so he had three candidates he was backing. Two of them up against incumbents, backed by the Democratic establishment, and all three of his candidates won.
Nice.
It turns out that people do want Medicare for all, affordable housing, people who are going to care about the working class, and people who are not going to go along with genocide.
Mhm. You love to
And
see it.
we absolutely. And one of them, so one of my favorite stories is Brad Lander. So Brad Lander did run for mayor against Zoran. And the first time I had ever heard of Brad was when they were campaigning essentially together because it's ranked choice voting in New York. And so
Mhm.
they had
Mhm.
joined forces and they were like, vote for me or vote for him, vote for one of
Oh,
us. We're both great. And Brad is Jewish. And of course, Zoran is Muslim.
I
Anyway,
forgot
we had,
about that.
Mhm.
It was so, like, refreshing.
It was so sweet. Yeah, and so they've continued it obviously to have a good partnership and, it seems like friendship as well. Anyway, so Brad, was up against Dan Goldman, who is not opposed, apparently, to genocide as far as anything that he has said publicly. And Brad, won pretty handily. And then we have Claire Valdez and Daria Liza Avila Chevalier are the other two who he had supported who won. And while folks in New York were celebrating, a lot of folks in New York were celebrating both online and in person. I saw, parties and yeah, people just being genuinely happy that this had happened. Um, the Democratic Party was responding differently. Now, you could imagine the party could be like, "Hey, this is great. We've got like a lot of enthusiasm around Democratic candidates. And we obviously need that. We have no control over anything right now. And we need candidates that people can rally around and like feel good about supporting. Um, Yet, here's what Jamie Harrison, who's the former chair of the DNC, said um, that night, Tuesday night, after the election. Jamie Harrison said, I say this with no ill will or animosity. That's already suspicious. Excuse me. He says, if you hate the Democratic Party, then please don't run for our nomination. Don't use our resources. Don't rely on our volunteers. Don't use our infrastructure. Don't ask Democrats to invest their time, money, and energy in your campaign. Focus on building the party you actually support. Political parties aren't perfect, but they're built by millions of people who knock doors, make calls, organize meetings, and fight for the values they believe in. If you don't believe in the party, then don't ask its members to carry you across the finish line. Yeah, that's a pretty wild thing to say on a night
I
when
don't know. It's almost like they don't want us to vote Democratic anymore.
I I think I think he is very out of touch, obviously, with voters. I mean, what folks have said, including Zoran was asked about this on one of the cable news channels. And he said, what is the Democratic Party if it's not the voters? Which I think, I mean, that's what it is to be in touch with reality. Like, that's who the party is. It's not Donna Brazil. It's not Jamie Harrison. It's not Tish James. No offense to any of those people, but you are not the party. The party is the people, and the people are telling you what it is that they're looking for. And
I mean, if you want to win, it seems like there's a guide that you could
Absolutely.
follow.
Absolutely. I mean, the person, one of the people who lost was a 5-time incumbent and chair of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. This wasn't just a random congressperson. This was person seen as a leader in Congress and lost to one of these up and comers. That's not the response that they're having to feel threatened is so counterproductive and off-putting that it's no surprise that they've had such trouble gaining traction with voters. Like, if that's your reaction, you should be so delighted. Like, oh, we found messages that resonate for people. We should run with that, right? And mind you, folks may or may not be aware that a lot of the Democratic establishment did not support Zoran in his
Mhm.
run for
Oh,
mayor,
it was very clear.
even after he became the candidate, even after the primary. And I just wonder, like, what is it that you want if it's not to win? Like, is that not like the point of your like the DNC? Isn't that like the? I mean, I guess it's to raise money, but isn't the point of the raising money to win the races? Um, Tish James, who has publicly had a positive relationship with Zoran, she said something
And
along
who
the
is that?
lines
I
of
don't
being,
know. I don't actually
oh,
know who
she's
that is.
Attorney General of New York.
Oh,
Um,
oh, of New York. Got it. Okay.
mhm. She said something like, a lot of people in the Democratic Party are disappointed in Zoran because he's blowing up the Democratic Party. I guess I don't understand what these people see as a win, because to me, all of this is winning. This is, like you said, this is a roadmap for how to win. What is successful messaging? What is it that people actually want? And how do we deliver that to them? That's what he's doing. And instead of cheering for that or learning from that, they're tearing them down. And
But it's so inconvenient. Do you know how expensive it's gonna be to actually, like, care about voters? It's gonna
well,
cost a lot of money.
and I
If we
think it
had to
points
actually
to,
follow through on the things that we promised the voters.
and I think it really does point to something these DSA folks are harping on quite frequently, which is money. The
Mhm.
money that goes into these elections, the money that these candidates receive, and how that impacts the policies they're willing to support. And so
Mhm.
it's becoming clear, right? Like that, what else is influencing these people to take these positions? Like Donna Brazil replied or quote tweeted or something related to Tish James's post or Tish James's words that I think someone else had posted, saying that she agrees. Like, what do you mean? You have a winner.
I mean, this is why people well, I mean, I don't know about I can only speak for myself. This is part
Mhm.
of why, like, I've never really been that impressed with the Democratic Party. Like, I liked Obama. I mean, it was really hard for him to get things done in office because of the way that the government runs and the way that the Republican Party was just really dead set on being as divisive as possible. I think, like, we really, we weren't able to, like, we, like, sort of stopped doing bipartisanship at that point. Um, but yeah, I'm kind of like, I mean, I don't understand what it is that the Democratic Party thinks is going to keep voters who genuinely care about the well-being and human dignity of the citizenry. Like, I'm just not impressed with them. But then
Well,
when
and
somebody like Zoran comes by and, like, I tend towards democratic socialism as well, and, like, I would love to see more of that.
yes, and even the general population is much more supportive of this now. There was a recent poll that showed there are more people in favor of socialism than there are in favor of capitalism. Um,
Yeah, I wonder why.
yeah,
It's
I
almost
mean
like
this.
everyone's lives are, like, kind of in a shambles right now because
Yeah,
you
like
can't afford to buy milk or gas or, like, put your kids in school or retire,
exactly. We've
pay
seen
your
what
bills.
we're seeing what capitalism does, and it's not, for most people. It's not been good. I mean, like, we've got so much wealth concentrated in very few people, um,
I mean,
and
look at Elmo. He's the first trillionaire.
yeah, but he just lost like a ton of value because for his net worth because SpaceX stock
because he sucks.
tumbled. So yeah, he's not a even by net worth a trillionaire anymore. Yay. Um, but he was there for a hot minute. Good for him. And anyway, so I think they're they're clinging to something that doesn't make sense. Like people are so frustrated with the Democratic Party. People who are like left leaning are frustrated with Democratic Party because they haven't, in many people's views, done enough for the people.
I mean, they can't even get their act straight. Like, listen, you look at the Republican Party; those people know how to get people in line.
Hmm.
They know how to get them to vote. They have a tight message. Now, I hate the message. The
Hmm.
message is grounded in, xenophobia and racism, white supremacy, and some mythical pastime.
Hmm.
But they're very clear. And the
Hmm.
Democratic Party's like, we're so distracted and whatever. Ah. And then like you see somebody like Mamdani come in and like resonate with voters, have messaging that resonates, get it, and they want to like throw it away. What are you guys like? How stupid! It's just so stupid.
Yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, so for folks who haven't been following, like some of the things that Zoran has done in just 6 months of being in office is he's gotten money from the state for universal 2K, so childcare starting at 2. The baby baskets that are going to go out to newborn babies, for all newborn babies in New York City. He's gotten $9 million back from Jeff Bezos for whatever he owed the city that he didn't pay before through Amazon. Um, he's gotten approvals for a faster process to build new affordable housing. I mean, I don't even have all the things in front of me. That's just off the top of my head. But the point is that he not only campaigns well and is obviously very charismatic,
Oh
eloquent,
yeah,
gifted speaker, but he's following through on the things. That's why I think he has so much cachet in this moment. It's not just that he talks good talk. It's like he's like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. He has really cracked down on bad landlords in New York City, saying that if you're not addressing the things that you're supposed to be doing for your building, we're going to reclaim your building. I mean, all sorts of things. And he's proposed that new tax on people who have a second home in New York. They don't live in New York, but they have a residence that's valued at more than $5 million. So he's going to tax those people. I mean, he is really following through on so much of what he said he was going to do. And that's why people love him. In addition to the fact that he's charismatic or whatever, but like
yeah.
he's
But it's
actually
like
doing the thing.
these are these are all interventions, right? That are pro citizenry.
Yeah.
These are actions that are pro family. These are actions that are you know pro safety.
Yeah.
And why it is that the Democratic Party finds all of this just like so threatening. Ah,
Yeah.
I don't know what to do.
Yeah. I
Please
mean,
grow
Tish
up.
James, so just so I can be clear about what it was that she said some of the candidates that he has supported are individuals who do not understand the politics of New York City, the cultural differences from district to district,
I'm
who have not
sorry.
been mhm,
What?
who
Shut
have not
up.
been part of the history and the struggle of some of these districts and are relatively new to the body politic. Okay, so they're young, is what I'm hearing her say. And that she and other political colleagues have said they're disappointed in his push to change the party. She says, quote, all of us are a little frustrated with the Democratic Party, but you don't blow it up.
I don't think anybody's trying to. I mean, anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. The
I
same with Jamie Harrison's comments about hating. None of those people has said anything hateful about the Democratic Party at all. I mean, they're just saying they're campaigning on what they believe to be important. And it is such a swing and a miss that the Dem establishment is not just following right along. Like, great, I love it. Great idea. Let's do more of that. It just the whole organization is so stale that they don't understand the power in listening to the people and delivering on the things that people actually want. And that isn't that like the whole point of this like representative system that we have? They're supposed to be delivering on what the people want, not on what the people who paid you want. It's the people who elected you.
yeah.
That's who you're supposed to be caring about.
Turns out if you want people to get out of their homes and go vote or to vote by mail or whatever, like this works.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think it's great. I mean, I don't know about I'm not sitting here saying I know everything about these candidates and they're the best people ever. I don't know that. But just the fact that there was so much support for people who are clearly behind progressive policies that are meant to help regular citizens, I think is such a positive direction in politics, whichever side of whatever aisle, like that this is actually going to help people. These folks are going to actually help people, and having more of these folks in Congress is going to be beneficial. So that's a win.
Yeah. I don't know a whole lot about New York politics. I never really thought I cared that much, but like Zoran Mamdani has me really caring about New York politics.
Yeah, I mean, I've never lived there. Look at all these things I just told you they're doing. They're not benefiting me, but I'm like, oh, that's a cool thing. Look at them go. And there's all these like tweets. I wish I had them pulled up right now. There's all these tweets of people being like, oh, look at me. I'm New York City. Like I have sunshine and rainbows and dolphins and Zoran Mamdani and the Knicks one. Meh.
That's funny.
Yeah. Clearly
That's
a lot
funny.
of clearly a lot of New York City envy going on out there, and I would count myself as part of that. I mean, I'm like, can I move to New York? Is it now a good time? By the way, there's like all these people who are saying that and have been saying that people are going to leave New York because of Zoran Mamdani and these policies, and I'm like,
Has anybody left?
again, like how out of touch are you to think that people are going to run away from policies that help families? What are you talking about? Even the rich people, I mean, this is the other thing is that you're going to tax the rich are going to leave. I mean, that's not what's happened anywhere else so far. I've not heard of that happening in New York either. But you know what? If they leave, great, great. Go take your inequality somewhere else. Go, I don't know, somewhere else, invest it somewhere else. But, they're not, New York City's not propped up by these people's second home that they don't live in. Like, that's not what's happening. Anyway, that's that's that on that.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you for the rundown. I had not followed those races that closely. I just knew that like I had just heard a little bit about it. So I appreciate that. Um so I wanted to talk, and I mentioned this last week. I want to talk about UFOs, and I want to talk about aliens. You
Okay,
ready?
let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. So so listen, I'm an 80s 90s kid. I grew up on the X-Files. I imagine you did as well.
Hmm.
Um loved the X-Files. And anyway, so there was all this like culture around UFOs and like it's out there, all of that stuff. And it's interesting because now of course all of us were like we're in our 40s and 50s and whatever. And in the past couple of years there's multiple tracks of things I'm going to talk about because the government is doing some, I mean, I know y'all are going to be shocked. Some wild things with websites and some
Hmm.
wild things with messaging, to promote various factions of behaviors.
Hmm.
So before I get into the aliens, I want to give you a little bit of a setup about some of the things that are happening in the design world of the US government. So, and this is important because of the way that design is used to sell us things. And design is used to sell us ideas. Design is used, in marketing to help us, not help us, for companies to say, hey, we want you to believe this thing and lead you to buy our product, or we want you to endorse this particular idea so that we can then get you to believe something else. So I have noticed since Trump's second term started, they've had a lot of, I mean, I'm going to be honest, like sort of trashy redesign of a lot of government websites. Like
Hmm.
it's very like, we're trying to be hyper masculine. Like I always feel like I'm being sold like a protein bar when I go to government websites now because like it used to be that the websites were quite tame. They were sort of boring. Like
Yeah.
I like a boring government myself. Usually means it's functional.
Hmm.
Um, but so many of the websites in this government have become more splashy. We've seen, every time, like if you go to any of the web pages that are about executive orders, they have a big black splash page with this sort of like flowery script that's, about the US government, and then big block letters, oftentimes in all caps, but not always, in white,
Hmm.
that has this sort of like masculine gravitas sort of a look to it. So I've just been watching that. And then I noticed when, after RFK Jr. got into office and HHS started releasing some of their reports, I was like, ooh, these are very like Instagram yoga mom aesthetically coded.
Mm,
Like there's a lot of like beige and like design forecasters, for example, will be like, yeah, the colors in 2026 are going to be this sort of a palette,
mhm.
like a terracotta or whatever. And so starting to notice those features showing up in government documents in a much more sort of in your face, but also like, I don't know, you hired like, I don't know, an Instagram designer, maybe off of Fiverr or something. You got like a budget version. I don't know. But I've noticed these changes in the design features. And so one of the projects that came out by executive order is that President Trump decided to have a national design studio. Now, we were talking earlier about contracts. Most of the design that's done for the government is done through government contracts. It's not done through an in-house design
Mm,
studio. So the government usually will pay contractors, and there's like a specific list of government contractors who will be designed to like redo the websites for the national parks or to update certain websites. A government contractor, for example, like if you've ever seen Medicare and Medicaid have these like big books that are by state, they don't have an in-house designer, they hire these outside groups to do it. Well, with the launch of the National Design Studio, apparently there's going to be this government rebrand, which is part of the stuff we've been noticing now. And we've been talking a lot about who are Trump's friends and who are the people that he's giving jobs to. And so I don't know if it's pronounced Joe Gebbia,
mm,
he's the billionaire co-founder of Airbnb, and
mm,
he is now the chief national design studio, or the chief of the National Design Studio. Um, Trump's got this like America by Design initiative. Like, honestly, none of this seems necessary. It seems like the other system was just fine. But they're clearly making this effort to use design as a way to tell us to like sort of micro target the citizenry to tell us things that we want to hear and to market certain materials to us by using design and to make us feel a certain way. So just a few weeks ago, Peter Arnell was appointed the chief brand architect for the
mm,
United States of America. Now, maybe people don't understand that every government, like, there is a brand. We do have like certain fonts that are used.
mhm,
These are how governments will show you that, how when you look at something like this is from the government, this is a legitimate source. There's a
mhm,
bunch of, if you think about the details in the money that, if you look at paper money, for example, when you look at a government website, you want it to be very clear to people that it is a trusted, reliable source.
mhm,
um, but all of that is up in the air right now in terms of what it's going to look like. So Peter Arnell being put into this chief brand architect position is really interesting because he is a very senior, my understanding is very well respected person who's done a lot of design work for companies that we all know about,
mm,
Pepsi, Donna Karan, Samsung, Unilever, who makes like soaps and stuff,
mhm,
Home Depot. Um, when big companies hire design firms, like, they're trying to sell products, they're trying to sell messaging, they want to make us feel good about things so that we will believe them, and also can be a beautiful distraction. So if you want to distract people from, I don't
mhm,
know, a war in Iran that you're totally blowing,
mhm,
you can use design as a way to draw attention to different things and to sort of pull people in using a lot of the things that we know from social media that are effective in terms of getting people's attention. So I say all of that because there is a big ecosystem behind the two websites I'm about to describe, and I
mm,
think it's important to recognize that these do not come out of nowhere.
mhm,
Um, so back in March, on March 18th, the government quietly registered a website called aliens.gov.
mhm,
And people who like watch the government's behaviors saw this, and basically every day were like refreshing it to see if it would have a website attached to it. And a website was officially launched on May 28th, 2026 at aliens.gov. Um, Before I get into what that website looks like, The other website that was launched by the government is through, the Department of Defense is now called the Department of War.
Not technically, by the way.
Not technically, but on all of their imagery,
Mhm,
for
mhm,
example, and
mhm.
on the website, for example, it's no longer dod.gov, it's war.gov. So this is again like how are we using websites to
This
send
isn't the Peace
messaging?
President, mind you. Anyway, go on.
But Pete Hegseth needs it to be the Department of War. So anyway, whatever. So war.gov is the Department of Defense official website of the
Wait, sorry, real quick.
government.
Did you see the video of him working out with the
Oh no, and I don't
military?
no, and
Because
I don't want to. Was it terrible?
well, because the reason it has to be war, right? Because he's got to be a manly man and show I'm a real man. That's why I'm the Secretary of War. We don't need that ninny peace nonsense. Anyway, so there's a video of him working out with these folks in the military, and I'm sure whoever made these clips like waited till the last part of his set or whatever. But it looks pathetic, is what I'm saying. Like he's doing a bench press. I mean, I could do a better bench press at that weight than he's doing. Like he just looks like he can't, he's just struggling, and then somebody has to help him. Which I mean, that's part of working out, by the way. It's just that he's trying to project an image of strength that doesn't, I think, exactly match with like who he actually is. Anyway, I'm sorry for that aside. That's what popped into my head when I started thinking about Pete Hegseth's attempts to be a manly man and how it falls short when
I,
documented. Anyway, carry on.
you know what I just really quick about Pete Hegseth. One of my favorite things on Saturday Night Live in this administration has been Colin Jost coming out to play Pete Hegseth in all the
Uh-huh.
skits, and it's pretty funny. So anyway, so the Department of War, the Department of Defense, the website is war.gov, and again, we are in the age of distraction where anytime something that Trump is doing is going bad, which is happening all the time, means that it's like, ooh, squirrel, look over
Mhm.
here.
Mhm.
Look over here. Something else is happening. And so there's been a long push for many years to like release a bunch of files that the Department of Defense apparently has and that the US government has related to what we colloquially would have called UFOs, the government since, unidentified flying objects,
Mhm.
whereas the government since 2020, they switched the name first to unidentified aerial phenomena, and now it's like unidentified anomalous phenomena. So they're called
Mhm.
UAPs now. And
Mhm.
basically, it's like imagery that pilots are seeing that indicates that there may exist some technology that is far beyond the capacity of our government. Some of these things, maybe they're Russian technology or Chinese technology, and some of these things there's not. There's been a bunch of government hearings around this. So basically, the president says, "Well, I'm going to be really transparent. I'm going to be the most transparent president," and so has been releasing or authorizing the release of these troves of documents that are about these UAPs. So, like I was saying, back in March 18th, the government buys aliens.gov or registers it. On May 8th, the government starts releasing documents on war.gov about these UAPs,
Mhm.
but they want the public to find it. And so it's war.gov backslash UFO
Uh-huh.
backslash.
Uh-huh.
Now, that website, you can download a bunch of these images, you can download a bunch of reports, whatever. It's a very like masculine coded, like, I'm about war sort of a website. Again, it's sort of like, like if the regular White House website is like a fancy protein bar, but it like still tastes chalky. The war.gov site is like, yeah, it's like a creatine ad. Like they're going to sell you some creatine. Anyway, um so May 8th that UFO website gets launched. People start analyzing whatever footage they see, whatever. The aliens.gov website went live on May 28th. So 20 days later. And it is fascinating if you look at these sites side by side because the aliens.gov website, it's very X-Files. It's
It is,
got the
yeah, it
neon.
does
Yeah.
feel a lot like X. Oh, is that it's got the neon green
It's
text.
neon green, sort of like glowing font. It's got a little bit of a 90s vibe to it. It's got scrolling text, which actually the war.gov site also has this, where they're really trying to maintain people's attention through scrolling. So when you open it up, you actually have to wait for the words to appear, which is it's a technique to get people to stay. So if you have people who are going to be pulled in by a particular bit of text, they're going to keep waiting for the text to be revealed.
Mhm.
um, it's on the aliens.gov website. The background is like stars, you
Mhm.
might say, in the background. It's a little cheesy. It's a little tongue in
I
cheek.
think they're trying to
Um,
be also a little bit Star Wars, like the intro of Star
yeah,
Wars, we've got the stars in the background and the text. Like, it's not exactly that, but I I
yeah.
I wouldn't be
But
surprised if they
it's
drew some
but
inspiration from that.
but imagine if instead it was Spaceballs, but it
Yeah,
was real.
yeah.
Um, Spaceballs, one of my favorite movies, by the way. Can't wait for the second one to come out. Anyway, so this website, however, aliens.gov, it is coded visually to make you think of little green men, of
Mhm.
aliens who are, from extraterrestrial creatures.
Yes, but I feel like you're really burying the lead here, because what
But
is
I'm
that
getting to
website
it. Just
actually about?
stop it. Getting there.
Our readers are
Because
wondering why we're talking about UFOs. Our readers, our listeners, sorry.
So, for example, when they did the teaser trailer for this website,
Mhm,
it showed a like UFO thing, AI generated image, of course, yanking up a person who appeared to be an immigrant
mhm,
into this thing. And so aliens.gov is actually, it's coded to look like UFOs. It's
mhm.
coming out at the time when these UAP documents are being thing, but it's all just xenophobic,
Yep,
racist, anti-immigrant stuff, where it's like it goes down into like, they walk amongst us, the people here. I'm going to actually read it because it's so terrible,
it really is terrible.
just for people to understand like how absolutely absurd it is. For 60 years, the U.S. government has kept a closely guarded secret. So again, like trying to sound like it's all about UFOs.
Mhm,
Aliens have been walking among us, living in our neighborhoods, and interacting with us in our daily lives. They've shopped at the same stores. They've attended the same classes as our children and lived seamlessly normal human existences. So the dehumanization, it's terrible. And like the entire site refers to immigrants, and not
mhm.
just undocumented immigrants, by the way,
Oh,
all
yeah.
immigrants, as it. Like the dehumanization is so outrageous and so intense.
Well, what I was gonna say is that, right after where you stopped reading, um, they say, 'cause what you said was, just to refresh for folks
Yeah,
who
the
are
human
listening,
existence.
yeah, that they lived seemingly normal human existences. The next line is, "With one exception, they do not belong here. Millions arrived under the cover of darkness and embedded themselves directly into our society."
So it's it's terrible. And then at the bottom it's like this whole map of apparently, immigrant arrests. Of course,
Mhm,
the data in it's wrong. They've had to multiple times change it because it turns out that, like, these numbers that they're showing, they're not grounded in reality anyway. Also, it's terrible. And stop harassing people in America. We obviously hate ICE on this show.
mhm,
We're an
mhm,
anti-ICE show.
mhm,
Um, this is happening at a time when, like, in 2025, 50 people died in ICE detention
mhm,
facilities. The government has arrested people, not only people who are undocumented, but also people who are citizens. Like,
mhm,
they're going after kids. We've talked about how they're abusing
mhm.
children and putting them in terrible conditions. Adults are in terrible conditions. And so to put out this like super cute, sort of like fun website it is incredibly offensive. And it's doing something from a propaganda standpoint.
Mhm.
I think it's doing something that is really negative and very powerful because it's so outrageous. It's doing that work of moving the Overton window because it's like, oh, it's a joke. Can't you? These libs, they just can't take a joke, And so it fits very well into this type of use of um, storytelling, this
Mhm.
use of visual cues to say, but this is all really lighthearted. Like we're just talking about, terrorizing people. It's fine. And it's clearly meant it was launched at a time to distract from the Iran war as but they could have released it, I'm sure, at any time when they decided it was time to like
Mhm.
distract. Um, but it's really embarrassing. It's a terrible move by the government. And I think that we are going to need to be on such high alert as citizens at how is it that the government is utilizing imagery, websites,
Mhm.
the names of websites. How are they using text? How are they using colors to make us feel a certain way or to move an Overton window or as a distraction? And I just think that this is a whole new era. I also think that, while I can't wait for this particular government to be over,
Mhm.
I also think there are so many things that are happening in this Trump administration that I don't think we can take for granted are going to go away.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
I really don't. And so it's very smart, if you're a government and you recognize like the government has a brand and we want to be able to market certain ideas, they're obviously paying people now to do that.
Mhm.
They're not using outside government contractors. They're specific like there are very wealthy people with a lot of experience in this area who the government is investing for those folks to really drive what is the visual vision of America.
Mhm.
And I think it's going to be used. I think the propaganda is getting more sophisticated and it's going to be used, over and over again in ways that I really think we have to pay attention to.
Mhm. No, I think you're absolutely right, and that aliens.gov website is such a good example because when you look at it, like, it has the built-in othering.
Hmm.
Like, it's making you think of, as you said, X-Files and these strange creatures, but they're talking about human beings.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very
And
s
that's something, right? Where like you have to think about it.
Mhm.
And the normalization of dehumanization, and they're doing it in a way that's I obviously am not I am obviously in opposition to the way that this is being done, but they're doing it in a way that feels fun. It feels tongue in cheek. It's just a
Mhm.
joke. It's just a
Mhm.
joke. Just like a rape joke. It's just a joke.
Mhm.
Can't you lighten up?
Mhm.
What's wrong with you? And
Yeah.
in that way, it has this plausible deniability that they feel like, oh, we're just being funny.
Yeah, sure. Usually when something's
Anyway.
funny, people laugh. I don't know.
Well,
Um,
I'm sure there are people who are laughing, right? Like you and I aren't, but
yeah. I mean, there's also, we had talked, you and I, about maybe discussing this other thing. I just want to throw it in here because we're talking about immigrants and um, a case that got sentenced. There was sentencing this week in a case that came out of a protest at an ICE detention center in Texas. The center was called Prairie Land, or is called Prairie Land. And folks who were there protesting have been now sentenced to 50, 70, and 100 years in prison for having been there. One person who wasn't even there was sentenced to 30 years in prison. His wife was one of the protesters, and his crime was moving some documents, some pamphlets, artwork, and poetry that they had at their house. And he's serving 30 years for that. And all of this, there's a lot more complexity to this case. For listeners, I know that we're, for the sake of time, not going to go into it, but I raise it here to just say that that's part of this same play of now they're calling these protesters terrorists. This is related to the NPSM memo, which I forget if we discussed on this podcast, but this came out in the fall saying that anyone who
mhm,
supports migrants, supports trans people, who opposes fascism, etc., is a terrorist. And so the judge in this case gave out intentionally severe sentences to like make this point that you can't attack our democracy. I mean, the judge said that these folks were attacking democracy
I
by
mean,
protesting at an ICE
literally,
detention center.
the right to protest is a First Amendment right under the Constitution. It's numero uno. It's not numero dos.
I know, but
Number one.
they're genuinely trying to eliminate it, and, there aren't enough people talking about that case. Um, I hope
Ugh.
that folks will look into it. I will put a couple links in the show notes, but if you can be sentenced to 30, 50, 70 years for showing up at a protest, how are we to express dissent moving forward? Um, anyway, uh it's a terrible, terrible precedent. Oh, and I should note that they've pressed charges against folks in Minnesota and in Spokane, Washington, and in Chicago as well, using this same NPSM memo framework. And now that there's precedent from this case in Texas, I find it to be one of the more concerning among all the many concerning things. I find it to be one of the more concerning things that's happening right now in this country.
Well, clearly, we're never going to run out of stuff to talk about. I was worried. I was worried, Argavon, when you were like, let's talk about something every week. I thought certainly there won't be so many things each week that we'll have a hard time choosing. But I
Mm.
just want you to know I understand that I was wrong.
Well, that's beautiful because you know what? You, unlike our president, can admit when you're wrong. And I appreciate that about you.
I'm Team Algae. What can I say? All right. Let's do take two and call me in the morning. Let's prescribe some lovely, lovely stories, some links. What are we going to give to the
Okay.
people?
I have a couple real quick things. One is that folks may have seen the military a while back. The military said they were no longer requiring the flu vaccine um, because, we're not going to be tyrannical about people's bodies, even though we're not going to let pregnant people get abortions. But anyway, you're supposed to kind of hand wave that away. But then there was an outbreak, a flu outbreak.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, it's not funny. And
Hmm.
so the good thing is they've now reinstated the flu vaccine mandate. So I guess we have to just keep relearning lessons we've already learned, but at least we're capable of still relearning them. So that's one. Another one that I wanted to point out is a very quick one. If you're looking for a laugh, there's a little video out there.
Always.
JD Vance went on his wife's show. She has Usha has a reading show to like.
Oh, but she like can't read very well, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm sure she's literate. I just mean
Yeah,
like
yeah.
when she reads out loud, it's pretty painful.
She's been criticized a lot for it, and so she started having guest readers. And
Oh,
so
okay.
JD Vance
And
was her
so JD Vance was the selected reader?
correct, but the best part about it, if you just Google JD Vance, Usha Vance reading,
Okay,
it'll come up,
I'm going to
I'm
do
sure.
it. I'm going to do
Um,
it.
she welcomes him to the show. They're both sitting down, like on a typical podcast type of thing, and she welcomes him to the show, and he says, "Good to see ya." And he leans over and he pats her knee. "Good to see ya." It's like very weird. It's very like, do you all ever touch each other? Are
Oh, it
you
was a Father's Day event. White House locks down Vance video before critics pile on.
I don't know, man. But there's a lot of funny takes about
Uh,
it. If you want to scroll on some social media, there's lots of people wondering what is happening with that relationship. Meanwhile, Usha's very pregnant at the moment, and people
I
are
was
like,
just noticing that. I didn't know that.
yeah, had to be a turkey baster, right? Well, it's just that if you can't even look like you touch each other ever, it's hard to imagine that there was anyway.
I don't want to imagine any of that. I don't want to
Yeah.
why would I imagine that? Stop doing this to me. No imagination.
Anyway, okay, I had one more, but I'm gonna save it for next week. What's your take
Oh,
two?
okay. Okay. Well, so people who follow me on Substack know that I have been raising butterflies. Like I love this. I get these like little cup. It's got little caterpillars in it. They eat their caterpillar food and you get to like the whole process takes about 6 weeks. On Saturday morning we released all the butterflies, but there was
Aw.
one Yeah, there was one straggler butterfly, which was like the last one to go into its cocoon. It like it's very small. I was like, is he gonna make it? Like he
Ugh.
was like the runt of the litter. I
Mhm,
don't know what the plural is for caterpillars, but I'm gonna say litter. And
mhm.
this one like grew very slowly, seemed like I was worried would be kind of sickly or whatever. Became a cat, became pardon me, in its chrysalis like much later than the other ones, like several days. But I'm happy to report did great.
Aw.
Emerged beautiful, all the wings intact, happily went out into the yard afterwards. So it was great.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. I
So
saw
that
them. I
was
saw them in the caterpillar stage.
yes. And then my other thing is we're recording this on June 25th. Tomorrow, June 26th, when this show comes out, I will be in Corte Madera at Book Passage, which is a bookshop. I'm going to be in conversation with my friend Courtney Mom, who has a book that I've talked about here before called Alan Opts Out. Actually, here it is. I have it. Alan Opts Out. Um, and I'm doing an event with her, which is going to be super fun. And I love music. I wanted to do something special. So I've made a mixtape to go
Oh.
along with the book. It's inspired by the book. And, I'm going to share it with people at the event as well. So I will put a link to the mixtape. It's on Apple, it's on Spotify, and it's on YouTube. So you can get it in any of those places.
Oh, that's amazing. I think that's it for this week's episode. If you didn't like what you heard, this has been the Whatever Podcast. If you liked it, don't forget to subscribe to The Present Illness, leave us a review and a rating, and then let other folks know that you like the show.
Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at The Present Illness to stay on top of all of our TPI related news. And for those of you listening on Spotify, I will pay attention there as well.
We will be back next week with more headlines, hot takes, and doom scrolling, hopefully wrapped in some laughs.
Until then, agitate, hydrate, and take a nap. We will see you next time on The Present Illness. Production by Argavon Salas and Alyssa Burgart. Editing by Alyssa Burgart. Social media by Argavon Salas. Original music by Joseph Uphoff. Don't take medical advice from random people on a podcast. This show is for informational purposes. It is meant to be fun, and it is certainly not medical advice. Please take your medical questions to a qualified professional. This podcast is our hobby. It doesn't represent the opinions of our employers, just ourselves.